Be strategically irrational. Yes, but I had a dilemma. How do I connect the Sacklers, Elon, and Rory Sutherland without creating outrage? Well, being honest about that dilemma is probably the best way to start this video. Look, this is going to be a weird one. I will start by talking about what Rory Sutherland means for our humanity. Then I will briefly talk about the Sacklers and Elon, because I don't want to spend 20 minutes being angry. However, I don't think we can talk about ethics without naming injustice. Then I want to get to the juicy part, the bus crash test, being strategically irrational. And I'm taking my own advice here, because mixing finance, advertising, IT, and philosophy in one video is exactly that. If all this madness sounds interesting, grab a cup of coffee or a whiskey. Let's start with Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy. Don't worry, I'm not going to summarize a whole book here. I just want to connect a couple of thoughts for people who are not in the marketing or advertising world. He says that human decision-making is fundamentally irrational, and that is exactly why our data-driven, purely logical solutions frequently fail. Instead, he says we should apply counterintuitive, almost magical ideas to our companies, our brands, well, anything and everything in our lives. I talked about the need for a new renaissance in my last video. The idea of creating for good, celebrating human potential, being weird, being human. None of that is a desperate rebellion against reality. I am actually expanding on Mr. Sutherland's idea. He uses a simple example in one of his talks, a hotel doorman versus automatic doors. Automatic doors were more logical. They optimize entrance, they reduce cost, etc. But guest satisfaction went down because they lost the human greeting and the connection, etc. Those are the values that don't directly generate visible profit. To quote the man himself, not everything that makes sense works, and not everything that works makes sense. We see this logic everywhere now, especially in the last several years with AI. The reasoning goes like this: efficiency is the goal, AI is faster, therefore AI is better. That over-optimization is part of the apathy and nihilism we are facing right now. Though, a reminder, I am not anti-AI, they are amazing tools. But, for example, look at this news headline. Gen Z workers are so fearful AI will take their job, they are intentionally sabotaging their company's AI rollout. I said, look at this headline, now I have a headline is not an article song playing in my head. So I will leave the link in the description for anyone who wants to read it. Anyway, I can't blame them. First of all, efficiency is boring. Humans value the struggle. That is why we climb Mount Everest or go to the moon. We find meaning in the achievement. Who cares if it is inefficient? Because logic kills the magic, especially when it becomes the only lens we look at the world. Focusing on what we optimize and not why we optimize makes the whole experience feel empty. Take the decades-old cake batter example. When they made the cake mixes to require a little bit of effort by adding the eggs and milk, they sold more. Or the classic IKEA effect. We value things more when we put effort into making them. We have been over-optimizing in a myriad of different areas in our lives. I saw so many examples of this during my IT career. Almost every decision was made purely on logic. Problem is, logic is a great tool for minimizing risk, though it is terrible at creating value for humans. But we can't create value without the risk either. Remember, we want to climb Mount Everest. This is also one of the reasons corporate cultures eventually become toxic. Because when everything is optimized for efficiency of numbers, ethics start to fade. They actually call this ethical fading, which directly connects us to the Sackler family because they're a textbook example of ethical fading. Profits over public health, blaming individuals to avoid responsibility, then attempting to launder that reputation with philanthropic donations while normalizing fraudulent marketing, allegedly. Yeah, I'm not from the US, but The principle of law works the same everywhere. Laws are just a set of agreed upon rules for how a society lives. We build these walls around culturally approved values, and those rules are supposed to apply equally to everyone. My father was shot by a man who decided to break those rules. But unlike the corporations, he faced the consequences. Yet, we know that is not always the case. Companies and individuals face very different consequences. We have systems where the powerful jump the wall and leave the powerless to deal with the second and third order effects over and over and over and over again. The tragicomic part is the corporate world sees ethics as inefficient, because when you need people to use nuance instead of automating things to an algorithm, you slow things down. Talking about corporate shenanigans, let's briefly talk about Elon. You could replace him with Sam Altman or whoever if you want. The principle is the same. We were desperate for heroes. So when these tech bros promise to solve everything with Starlink and rockets or a new AI future for the good of humanity, we feel hope. Then you look at the whatever and take a deep breath. These giant corporations, big tech companies are affecting all of our lives, no matter where you live in the world, not just in the US. When companies hold this much power to influence society on this scale, when they hold power to bury or amplify a piece of information through algorithmic decisions, they should be subjected to the same expectations and rules we place on individuals. They should take responsibility. The funny thing is, we fall into these binary and simplistic hero versus villain narratives because it is easier. But what about all the other actors benefiting from these same systems? Media groups running influence campaigns, political advertising, governments using social media platforms, geopolitics, economies, prediction markets. As I said before, all of our societal structures are connected. There is no simple answer to anything. We have multiple paradoxes playing out simultaneously. This is one of the reasons regulators and policymakers across Western countries are having such a hard time right now. By the way, US or China might think they will be fine as long as they win the AI race. Oh boy, they are wrong. This is a global problem. We are all in the same bus heading in the same direction. So, what happens when that bus crashes? Yeah, we are finally here. You are on a bus traveling from one city to another. The bus crashes. Horrible accident. You got yourself out. You're okay. Now you start helping people. Will you ask, who did you vote for? Tell me, really. Write it down in the comments. Because I believe most people wouldn't care about politics or birthplace when you are inside that kind of catastrophe. You roll up your sleeves, ask help from others who are also safe, then you get to work. You cooperate. So, why don't we feel like we have to cooperate anymore? Well, because the bus hasn't crashed yet. Everything in life is a choice. Look at what's happening in the world right now. We are choosing division instead of unity, digging our heels in like spoiled children because we have too many options. So how do we make a different choice? Because the Earth is our bus, our giant spaceship, our space bus in the galaxy. We are heading in the same direction. If it crashes, will you ask how I voted before saving me? Will you leave the kid stuck in a seat in a country they didn't choose to be born? Look, I used to hate small talk. I felt like it was useless. I'm still not great at it, but now I understand saying, hey, lovely weather today, isn't it? is a tiny, tiny but very important connection point. It is an agreed reality with someone you don't know very well yet. And those tiny shared realities become the foundation of bigger conversations. I will use a weird metaphor here. In finance, maintaining something is an operating expense. Companies try to lower the maintenance numbers to make the overall books look better. They call this deferred maintenance. We are applying the same logic to our relationships. When a friend or a partner becomes high maintenance, we are replacing them instead of doing maintenance. Funny enough, the hidden liability is the same for both finance and the relationships. You destroy value over the long run. Plus, nobody is perfect. My husband, amazing man, he had this annoying habit of using floor space as a ground level shelf. It turned cleaning into a nightmare. I used to call him my floor abuser. One day, we switched tasks. I watched him pick things up one by one in order to clean. Well, we have storage boxes now. Tiny shared realities, the context can change behavior or the outcome of everything. Even when logic already exists. He knew the floor was not supposed to be storage. So no, not everything has to be reasonable to be magical. It is why we buy mystery boxes. Otherwise, why are we paying money for a surprise we might not like? It is not reasonable, but it is in our nature to hunt the thrill of discovering the unknown, being surprised. Well, dopamine. Wherever you are or whoever you are, sometimes you can't change the people or the situation around you. It is frustrating and also part of the apathy and nihilism I talked about earlier. We are already dancing on the grave of globalization. The gargantuan scale of change feels terrifying, and hope is exhausting. So let's start with the first step. My father doesn't have a university degree, but I call him a street philosopher. When I was writing all of this, I remembered something he told me as a teenager. Everyone's own problems are the biggest problems for them. He was right. The moment we live in always feels like the most important moment, but our values are built from the accumulation of those moments. As individuals, we can't stop these big changes. So what can we do? We can be strategically irrational. When everything tries to divide us, the strategically irrational decision is to build a global community. When everything runs on profit, make things that are irresistibly good and beneficial. People will come. We are all looking for that human premium right now. Start building a global community of people on a mission to do good. A miracle, as Rory Sutherland might put it. Create art, even if giant companies manage distribution, social media platforms, book publishers, music industry. Well, hello, YouTube. Let's start by acknowledging the problems. Politics alone is not helping. I know injustices are infuriating. Use that as ignition to do good. Talk to your neighbor. Treat every ordinary person as a treasure hunt. Agree on tiny realities. Lay foundations brick by brick. Make zines instead of posts. Make music telling your story. Write poems of your sorrows and dance. Because it is fun. I promised you to tell you about the tools I use to break my own cynicism and apathy cycles. This whole thing was it. No algorithm or corporation can stop you from being strategically irrational and doing good. That is how we start speaking for ourselves as humanity. If billions of us all around the world ask for the same things, we can drive this marvelous space bus to a more hopeful future. I am Ruby. It is a privilege you are here. Thank you.